My first console was the PS1, the PlayStation 1. I also had the Game Boy Light. Is that what it's called? But it had a backlight, and I also had like the little squiggly light that you could plug in, and it like hovered over it so you could see better at night. Um, but for a while, up until the Wii, I didn't have any other consoles. We didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I like didn't ask / couldn't ask for other consoles. So I spent a lot of my time actually consuming media on YouTube. So that kept my love for games going.
I actually started at my uncle's internet cafes because I just had a bunch of uncles who owned a lot of that, like in the Philippines. That was kind of where my gaming started. I played a lot of StarCraft and Warcraft, like Age of Empires, like a lot of PC games. And then I was given a PlayStation 1 by my mom after I started getting more into gaming. And I played just a lot of like WWE wrestling with my brother and Tekken and a lot of fighting games. But I guess you could say like those were my favorite games, and The Sims because I was big on PC.
I did a lot of stuff behind my parents' back. Like they didn't know that I was playing games, or if they did, they were like, "Oh well, like at least she's not doing weird things after school. At least she's home." But I foolishly used video games as a like I'm not like other girls sort of thing. Fool that I was at the time. So yeah, I would use that to like actually become friends with a lot of guys in my class. But even then, at that point, when I had like gotten really intense about games, it was like high school, so I was already developing like my identity as a woman. I'd have like really intense talks with people about how like important representation was at that time. They'd be like, "Oh, I really like this game," and I'd say like, "It's really misogynistic. Why are you playing that game? You should be playing like XYZ."
It's interesting because I feel like my mom would have like rather me play with games than with boys is like what she would say. So obviously like when I was playing GTA, she was like, this isn't really for kids and you shouldn't be playing that. Just like in general, I would hang out with a lot of boys growing up. So all the girls would be like, why is she like playing games? That's like a guy's thing. And in the Philippines, that was like especially like it was less liberal out there, I suppose, like growing up. So I heard that a lot, but my mom would just be like, okay. And it was also just another thing for me and my brother to bond over. So as long as we were getting along, then that was fine by her.
Yeah, growing up, I didn't like point at anything and say like, oh my God, I can see myself in this woman or this girl. And I think like my mom was also looking out for me. Like she wants me to be able to engage with things where I can find myself or representation. She's not gonna use those words because she doesn't have that kind of vocabulary, but she like was always looking out for me in that way. So seeing Ellie as like a proper main character in a AAA game at the time was still like that was a benchmark for me too. So I showed that to her, and she told me like, "Oh, you're really like Ellie," and I was like, "What does that mean?" And she goes, "You curse too much."
But then when Ellie came around, I related to her in so many ways, and I thought like that was like the big changing point of, oh, I can actually relate to games like in a personal sense as opposed to just enjoying them for like entertainment and stuff.
High school me would be on the moon. Just like you're doing the thing at a studio that you thought was completely untouchable. I don't do programming. I don't do scripting. I didn't think I could do anything in games. So I was like, oh, this is a pipe dream. It's just nice to think about it. Like, oh, if I ever move out to LA, maybe I'll meet someone who worked on this game. Turns out it's me. I'm working on the game.
I don't know. It was just like kind of like a whirlwind. Naughty Dog, just like in general, was kind of like my end game studio, but specifically to be working on the sequel of like the game that kind of changed everything for me and made me want to pursue a career like for real in the industry was, I don't know how it can really go up from that. It's just really special. And I feel like that's kind of just like one of the biggest life accomplishments I have like thus far.
Like Gabby, I think a lot about how like I'm young still. I don't want this to be the end. I want to be able to see like more Ellie, but like me. I want to see Elena, but like me, Lara Croft, and like doing things where they get to be strong or soft. So hopefully it's on the up and up.
I think the biggest thing was just being taken seriously.
Yeah.
growing up, there was just like, oh, are you really even playing games?
Oh my God.
And then
Still, now I still get that.
yeah,
Do you even play this? Are you gonna finish this? And like, okay, calm down.
I like didn't believe I was a dev or whatever. Things like that. And then I feel like there's like the intersectional like things with being an Asian woman that's also in games. And there's like layers of like fetishization there. And yeah, on the flip side, if like they were like, if they didn't believe you were like a gamer girl, then if you were, then it would be like even more like unwanted attention from them. It was just very like tokenizing, if it wasn't demeaning. So those were like challenges. Women in general feel like they have to just go above and beyond, like when it meets,
Overcompensate.
yeah, overcompensate when it comes to meeting requirements to even apply for jobs, which just like,
Oh my
you
God.
know, makes it harder for people to feel confident in like applying for any position. So I think that's a big thing. Those are like, I guess, my biggest challenges, and they still happen, but like, I don't know, maybe you just get used to it or just like learn how to deflect it better.
Yeah. I throughout like any interview process, I find myself thinking like, okay, I have to carry myself like a very self-confident, self-deserving man. And I can do anything because if I think like a man, then like people are gonna understand that like I know what I want and I know like what I'm about. And that kind of sucks that I have to even think that way, because it kind of undercuts a lot of the efforts that women before me have made or people of color before me have made. And I think like one of those challenges, aside from having to field the naysayers, like all like these people who don't think that I belong here, I have to field myself. I have to like remind myself that there is space for me. There's space for people who look like me, who speak like me. And excuse me, if I can make that space, others will join as well. And that, if anything, has like fueled me to stay here and make sure that others know that like, yeah, this is possible.
I think the biggest thing is just like advocating for other people. And now like getting into more like leadership position, like getting like a say in like who to hire and like having that voice um, has been just like a goal of mine. And I mean, just like existing, honestly, like does a lot already because there's like people from like the Philippines who just like message me and I'm like, how did you find me? This is cool. But they're like, wow, I didn't know that there's like this like Filipina in gaming, like who had worked on one of my favorite games. Um, and I feel like that itself just like gives a lot of inspiration to people. So I think like what Maddie said, like just like being here and like kind of sticking to bring others like along with us.
And aside from making space, I hope to keep the conversation open. If not for me, for like my better understanding of how to better represent marginalized communities in games, whether it's actually developing those games or playing them, it's to help make that space better for people overall.
I think just like I want to just continue being part of like stories that like help a lot of people,
Yes.
and continue to push for like diversity, and bringing that to the forefront and like uplifting like underrepresented voices, whether that's like with the games we make, or just like connecting with the community more, but just like bringing more of that like approachability, and not making us feel like super untouchable. Because that's how I felt like the industry was until like you got in. It was kind of like, how do I break into this? So yeah, just bringing up like more of that accessibility. But I don't want to like, I don't have like a big huge dream or anything. I just
I think
like
that's
want
a
to
big
keep doing what I'm
dream.
doing. Yeah, that is a big dream.
Yeah.
So
being a doorstopper of sorts for people. The lofty pipe dream now is to be able to continue participating in telling those like untold or overlooked stories. And I am an artist and I want to be able to get better at that. So I want to be able to like design characters who look like me or characters who like are often overlooked or worse, killed on screen. I want to be able to get better at my art, make rent, help people make rent and make art, and be that doorstopper for people.